All right, welcome everybody. If you're here for the Mazévo Connect, the community Q&A session, you are in the right place. My name's Brian Peck. I'm the Vice President of Sales and Marketing here for Mazévo. It's great to see you all on here today. We've got a good turnout. For those of you that this is your first Mazévo Connect, welcome. We do these about every month, and we always pick a different topic every month. In the past, we've done one on Mazévo operations. We've done one on billing, done one on taking requests. We've done some on new features. So we always record these and they're out on our YouTube channel. If you're curious about past ones that we've done and things like that, go check those out. But we're excited about today's session here. This is our community Q&A session. This is the first one of these that we've done. So we're going to see how this goes. And the thinking behind this is that you all have a ton of experience in your roles doing what you do, and you have various levels of experience with Mazévo, but we want to tap into the experience that you have there with just, things related to events and scheduling and all of that. So I asked you all to submit any questions that you have for the community here, and I'm going to be kind of moderating those and going through those here today. I'm going to try and get through as many as we can. If I don't get to your exact question, just keep in mind we do have them. I'll still respond to it anyways offline and, try and help you out that way. But, we're just going to try and get to as many of these as we can this way. If you do have a question that you didn't submit ahead of time, feel free to go ahead and put that in the chat. I'll see if I can get to those as well. We just want to open this up here, and I think it's going to be good because as much as possible, I'm going to try not to jump in and answer the questions myself or let Dean or Wendy answer it because, we know Mazévo really, really well, but we'd like to hear on some of these how you all would answer the question here because you know your role and you're the ones in the trenches doing this every single day as far as scheduling. So if you have something to say, I would love to, just go ahead and unmute yourself and jump in with your response to that. So anyways, let's see here. I'm just going to do a quick introduction of the Mazévo teammates. If you've been on previous Mazévo's Connects, you probably know who Dean Evans is. He's our CEO. So he's here joining as well. He may chime in on some of these. And I've also got Wendy Newland here. Wendy is one of our implementation specialists and helps get people up and running with Mazévo. Many of you know her. And so it's just the three of us here on the call today and then all of you. So with that said, I'd like to go ahead and jump into things here, and we'll just go ahead and take it away. Dean and Wendy, if you guys could watch the chat for me, if anything's happening there, that would be awesome.
Yep. We got
all
that.
right. So I'm going to pull up my list of questions, and we're just going to jump right into this. So first question here is from our newest Mazévo customer. New as in like literally this morning we got the order from Western Washington University. So welcome you all. I see there's a couple of you at least on the call here today. But this question's from Fred, and I'm going to kind of, paraphrase here, but Fred's wanting to know about assigning people to work events in Mazévo. So he's got a performing arts facility, and they are currently on EMS. Many of you know EMS here on this call, I know, but he's kind of done it a little bit in EMS, but it sounds like he's also doing it in Excel. Does anybody here actually assign workers or individuals to specific events? If you just want to, you can unmute yourself, put it in the chat, whatever, but is there anybody here that currently does that? Because we've heard of it happening before. I just didn't know if anybody on the call does that.
We have in the past. This is Amanda with the University of Colorado Boulder, done it for sports events. And what they do is they make a resource called labor, and they make people the resource, and they assign the labor to whatever event it is, and their start and end times are part of that labor setup. So that's one way we've done it. You can pull reports on it and see it in 7 points and things like that.
Great. Thanks, Amanda. Yeah, that's what I was thinking of too, is that you could do it as a resource possibly there, because that gives you some options to get it back out of the system as well. Anybody else?
This is Jane from North Alabama.
Hmm.
We do it as a resource as well, and I break it down a little bit more so to where there's sound checks that I can put before the event, and then actual event staff that goes in there as well. But what we've started exploring now is the whole operations tool, and we're starting to use that to give the workers specific jobs outside of the event that we can do that. And it's new and fresh on our part, but we love it.
Awesome. Thanks, Jane. Yeah, and Fred, that's a good thought there as well. I don't think you had this, or you had 7 points with your EMS. I can't remember, but Mazévo has an ops app. That's what Jane's referring to here, and that's where you can assign people to work specific events in the ops app as well. So there's some options there too. So anybody else here before we move on?
I'll just throw in one thing. I know the folks down at Missouri St. Louis, they came off of EMS, and they have a performing arts center there. And what they had done is created rooms for their staff workers so that they could schedule those workers. Now, that's great, but keep in mind that Mazévo's priced on the number of rooms. So if you have 50 people on your staff, that may not be a great way of doing it. And I don't remember what he had for how many rooms and staff people, but the resources would also work as well. So just full disclosure. So.
Yep. Awesome. All right. Thanks, Dean. Okay. So here's a question. This one comes from the University of Hawaii, and it was Stephen that asked this question here. Is how do you set up Mazévo to limit the rooms a group of users can see? So anybody want to jump in on that if you're familiar with how Mazévo's configured there, or what you all have done? All right.
So, sorry,
ahead,
this is
Colette.
Colette from University of Southern Mississippi. We have ours, we have the library and specific buildings in Mazévo that we book that students are not allowed to request. So in setting up the security policies for students, we unselect the buildings that they can reserve space in. So it doesn't allow them to reserve spaces in those specific buildings.
Yep.
We also did the same with faculty and staff. And the great thing with it is you can go in to like individual accounts and say, this one can book in this building, but they can't book in this building. So it makes it easy, and you can specify which buildings you want them to be able to book in.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Colette. Yeah, and I'll just add to that a little bit. For your requesters, the people making requests, you can even take that down to the room level. So you can limit somebody and say, these 3 rooms are off limits to you. You can't make requests in there, and they can't even see them. They won't see them as options when they go in there to make a request. And you can do it as well at the building level, as Colette mentioned there. So, all right. The next one here is from Colby Sawyer College, and this one here came from Susan, I believe, and she was asking about the ability to swap rooms in Mazévo. So the way she explained it is this can happen with classes, but it can also happen with other events, like I think they're tracking their vehicle fleet in there and things like that. And there's now and then where you need to move a booking out of one room into another room, but there's already a booking in there. And so you need to kind of move that one out and move it into another room. Does anybody want to talk to how they currently do that today?
Dane again from North Alabama. The drag and drop on the book is awesome if it's in the same tenant.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, if you move the one out of the way, I mean, you can put it where you planned the first one. You can put it someplace temporarily, or you can move it to where you're going to take it to replace it with the other one.
Yep. Yep.
Is
Exactly.
I'm sorry to interrupt again. This is Amanda. Is there the right click swap option on the book view anymore?
There's not. We don't have that actually in Mazévo, and that's probably what's I'm guessing prompting this question, because I think Susan used EMS previously. So yeah, we don't have that swap option like you had there.
Is it a web development issue, or is it just curious? Because I love it. I use it and it's fast.
Yep, that's okay. Yeah, no, it's just something that we haven't heard anybody until today really has brought it up to us. So, and that'd be something too. I mean, if people are like, oh my gosh, that would be the best feature ever, put it in the chat, let us know if you would really, like something like that. But on this side, the way, just for those of you that are newer to Mazévo, it's not exactly EMS, so it's not going to have all the features in there that EMS does, because we've really focused on keeping things as simple as possible. And the way that we've done that is that we wait until people tell us, like, man, it would be really nice if I could do X, Y, or Z. And when we hear that enough, that's when we'll consider putting it in there, because as some of you know that are on EMS, I mean, there's just a ton of stuff in there that you never use. And we do not want to repeat that with Mazévo. So anyways, that's kind of our thinking behind it. So.
Brian, this is
Yeah.
Deb from the University of Wisconsin. I just have a question. We have a status that we would change the bookings that we want to move to a different room, just change them to a status like dual use or something that doesn't assign space. And then we could change the bookings that we want in those spaces that we want. And then we could do something with the other ones afterwards. So it's kind of a 3-phase thing.
Yeah, that's a great one too. Thank you, Deb, for that. And here, I'm going to show you real quick what everybody's been talking about here, just to illustrate the point, just to make it kind of clear here. So I've got my book up here that we can look at here. So yeah, let's say on these two events, I've got the debate meeting, the chess club meeting here. I want to swap the two between the two rooms. Now, if I'm in the book, right, I can just do a drag and drop and I can move it out of here. Maybe I want the debate to end up where the chess club is and chess club to go where debate is. Well, my options are I could either drag it into here, right? And now that room is freed up and I save the change. And then I come in and I move the chess club up into here, save that. And then I move the debate, back into where the room that I wanted in right here. And so you can do that way. And then what Deb just talked about was the ability to change the status on it. So that's another way to do it. So I can say, let's say I want to switch these back now. I want the debate meeting to go back into the Ballator gallery up here. I could first come in and I could say, well, let's free up the room by just changing the chess club status right here to something that's not blocking the space. And in my system here, I've got one just called conflict, and I use it for this purpose. So I'm temporarily going to have a conflict in the room, but that's okay. And you can see Mazévo just puts it in. It's just a little skinny bar for me. And now at this point, I can go ahead and I can move the debate meeting in there, no problem. And so I've temporarily kind of got these two things in the same room, and then I can drag it down here, move it back into the room that I want, and then I can change its status back here. So I can put it back into confirmed. And of course, you can do this through the event editor as well. You don't have to just do this in the book, but I'm just doing it to just kind of show it more easily that way. All right. Thank you for those. Let's look at the next question here. This is another one here from Colby Sawyer College. And the request was, this was from Malika, I believe, and it's when taking a request, she was saying that it would be really handy if people, when they're putting a request in, let's say they want catering, but they don't just want the catering there when the meeting starts. Maybe they want to denote that, you know, I want a special break to happen an hour after the meeting starts, and then I want to serve lunch 2 hours after that, or, you know, something like that. So she's essentially asking for a way to put service times on the when the request is submitted, you know, for the catering. So curious if anybody else is dealing with that at all right now. Is that something you all would use? From the just little bit, we haven't heard this one a lot from anybody, so I'm just kind of opening this up to the Mazévo community because we don't have a way to do it exactly in there the way it was done in EMS. But does anybody have any thoughts or passion about that idea?
This is Chris Powell with Hollins University, and sometimes we have that with some of our AV stuff. So we might have a meeting that goes the whole day, but they want an AV tech in there at a particular time. So
Okay.
I have it set up, you know, PowerPoint or whatever they have. I just make a note in there. That's how I've been doing it, saying, hey, Gabe, they want you in there at 11 o'clock to deal with this.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. And that's one way to do it, definitely. So
Yeah, notes don't work for some of my staff, so I have to have a set, like you show up at this time and you leave at this time, because we have a lot of language variation going on in our building. We have a very diverse community, so it's really important they actually not read and just see a time. That seems to be universal for the world, so that works for them.
yeah. Well, and just to be totally clear too, in Mazévo, we do let you designate the service time for any service that you want. This is just from the requester point of view. The person who's submitting the request, they don't have access to put in the exact time they want each resource or each service to be delivered today anyways. So so the concept exists and people will still see that on their report. It's just that the requester doesn't have a way to indicate that in that field. They would have to put it in a notes field or something like that. So
We don't offer our services online, so that's okay. They have to actually ask us, so that works.
Yeah, so certainly as an event planner, global administrator, you can put those times in as you're adding those resources to the event. So that you can do today. It's just, we're talking specifically about that requester being able to pick those resources and the time to go with it. Now they can, if they don't put times in, the event planner can still go in and add those times and split the catering items up into breakfast and lunch and things like that. The theory behind why we did that was we were just trying to make the request experience as simple as possible. And when you introduce those times, now you have to be able to let them edit the times and things like that. And it just, yeah, we can do it. We did it in EMS, but it's like, is that really the experience you want for the requester? So just, that's kind of what we were looking. So
I found it, this is Jane again from North Alabama. I found it much easier for the client if they can just do it in the notes and then I make those changes for them.
yeah. Okay. All
We
right.
all must have easier people to train, because I struggle with getting them to use the notes in a way that makes
Yeah.
sense, or to use them at all. But I appreciate that input, and I do see your point, Dean, that opening this up in this way gives almost a little bit too much.
Yeah.
To them. Thank you.
Yep. And we're happy to brainstorm with you offline. If you know, you want to talk about this further, we can talk about that. So
This is Kathy from
oh,
planning. Is there a way to set them as a type of resource and hit a resource schedule within, or perhaps use something in the ops, assigning it to people?
well, you could put a event question in there that's triggered. So anytime somebody say picks catering, a question could be triggered automatically that says, let us know what time you want the catering served or something like that, where they would have to indicate that. Again, it is a notes field, so you'd have to translate that back to the proper service time in there, but you could do it that way. So,
Yeah, okay.
yeah.
So it goes from notes on requesters end to, as the global administrator, we would put it in as the time that shows on the reports.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So, all right. This is another question here from Fred at Western Washington. He was curious about adding information during or after an event. So, and again, I'm paraphrasing for you, Fred, so feel free to jump in if I don't get this right, but essentially he's got a crew of people that's working on a production. Again, he's in a performing arts type of facility there. And so during the event, they might want to note things like, when did the event actually start? How many people showed up? What kind of additional equipment was used? Maybe that wasn't on the event order, that kind of thing. Today, he's got a form that they fill out. It's just a Word document that is filled out and I'm probably saved with the event, I'm guessing, on there. But does anybody else have a similar type of situation, and are you using Mazévo in any way to kind of help facilitate that? Right.
This is Kathy again. I put post notes in the actual event.
Oh, okay. So you go
It's under
back.
setup notes.
Yep.
Setup notes, or in a specific resource if it affects only a resource. Although I try in general to put all post notes in the setup notes so that that's the first thing you see if you're opening up a past event, to look at the history or to carry it forward and copy it. At the very top, you'll see, hey, when this happened, the reality was X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Again, you're using notes, so somebody's got to open it and read it, but it's generally a higher level planner or me.
Yeah.
That's dealing with that. So.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. That's so you kind of have a consistent way of putting those into the system so that if they're there, you know where to find them.
Events, that's been very helpful because we tend to just pull it up and do it again.
Yep.
So it's so nice to have those post notes right there. When we pull it in, we plop it into the new dates, and then we know it gives us that list of things we need to talk about.
Great. Yeah.
This is a little bit different application. This is sort of archival's not quite the right word, but it's data that we capture on each event. It's just like Rote. My staff writes down the actual start time, the actual intermission time, the actual number of attendees, a couple other notes on the thing. Right now it's paper-based, and then we'll scan it and actually attach it to the event. And I was just wondering if there's a way to capture that stuff directly in Mazévo instead of having to have it be a separate entity that we bring in and attach.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump in and say, yes, there is. For the folks that came off of EMS and used 7 Points, there was a tool in 7 Points called, we've heard different names, Building Manager Report, Incident Report, Shift Report. So we put that in Mazévo. So there's the ability to create one of these reports. So it's a list of questions that you define. Say, what time did the thing start? When was intermission? Who worked it? Were there any problems? So you can create that report, and then you can assign that to, one or more people and let them fill that out. And then right in Mazévo, they can file this report. Now they can file more than one report a day. So if they're working more than one event, it might be on a kind of a matinee kind of thing, in a performing arts role there. But so here's a list of those questions, and you just create the questions, and this is what they would do is they come over here and fill this out and submit it, and it's all.
Interested in this?
What's that?
How we use a Qualtrics form? Would you be interested in moving it to Mazévo? Oh, sorry, I should be on mute.
Wait.
Yes, you could move it to Mazévo. So yeah, this is an example of the questions, and so we can. We just put this in a couple months ago, but for the 7 Points users, This is that shift report, incident report. You can have as many of these, survey things that you want, and then assign them to different users. So.
And where is that created? Where do you create that in Mazévo?
You're going to create the report in settings and assign it to the users that you need to put it to there. So that says daily log function.
Daily logs. Great. Thank you.
And then there's two other things that you then file a daily log, and then you can run the daily log report. So.
Great. Thank you.
I have a question with that. The one who was just recently unmuted. Is this similar to like the other reports that we publish reports and there's a URL? Is there a capacity to do this daily log or this post-event survey via and then share it via a URL?
Well, it's really kind of designed for the operations folks to fill out.
So they need to log in to.
You need to log in to fill out one of these reports.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah, I know.
But the delivery of the data is just like any other published report. You can say, I want to send this to the vice president of the school, and you can email them a link, and then they can click on it once a day and see all of the report, how they were filled out. So.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, I was just looking at like my event student staff where I would have them ideally fill out this report at the end of their shift, but they wouldn't necessarily need Mazévo, anything else in Mazévo. They're just kind of like reporting back on the event.
Yeah, you're going to need to have the service worker role at a minimum to be able to add that data.
Okay.
And we want that because when they log in, we know who they are and what time they submitted it, and all that's all tied to that login, rather than the Qualtrics form that you referred to. So there's just a hint more security around it, but at least we know who filled the form out. So.
No, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Okay, so got another question here. There were two that were submitted that were kind of similar. So I'm going to kind of lump them together, and we can talk about these more. So this came from Deb at University of Wisconsin in River Falls. She's asking if anybody has a good, efficient example of how they use the review events tool. So they're in the process of implementing Mazévo. They've recently implemented it, and she's working on getting her operations staff, it sounds like, to kind of embrace Mazévo. So I think she's interested in just hearing how people are using maybe that specific tool or maybe operations in general. I'm not sure. You can chime in on that, Deb. And then also Colette down at University of Southern Mississippi at Gulf Park, she was asking about people that do kind of these in-person production meetings where everybody gets together, like say once a week or every couple of weeks, and you talk about all of the events that are coming up and making sure everybody's on the same page and discussing them that way. So curious if anybody's doing a process like that or would like to talk about how you're currently doing things there as it relates to Mazévo.
So just to offer some clarification on the in-person production meetings, our physical plant staff is not as tech savvy as we would hope. So they don't like to carry around a tablet or a phone in order to keep up with what they have to do for room setups. So they print out the production report, but a production report for 2 weeks here is 40 plus pages. So we're trying to figure out a way to lighten their paper load while also not having to get together to do in-person meetings if we can avoid it.
Gotcha. Yep. Okay.
Hey, really quick question. Would we're using a published daily operations report for a day, like the day of, would that suffice for your employees? And then what they would do, we do this within Andrea from Oregon State at Rec Sports. We do this for our maintenance and custodial staff. They get that URL that they save to their computer and they print out the 2-week event schedule. And then each day there's a daily schedule that goes into it a little bit deeper. And then they just print that one pager out for the day of. And that is just a published report. That's just in, what is it? A daily operations report that we've published.
Yeah. Thank you, Andrea. That's a great one. I mean, just to clarify on that too, if you're doing the published reports, people don't need a login to Mazévo to view a published report. You essentially supply them with a link and say, hey, here's your report. It's always up to date. Just click it each morning and you'll get the latest information. So that's another way to kind of deliver the information to people. They still have to click a link, but everything's already done for them. It's just, here's today's events. It's the latest information. And then that way they're not having to, run a 40-page report for 2 weeks. Anybody else that wants to chime in on that one?
This is Kathy at Park Cities. On the operations and reviewing and stuff. I'm curious, is that through the approval process, or I didn't quite understand the question?
Yeah, well, and Deb, please feel free to jump in. The way you worded it is Mazévo has a option called review events. It's under the operations menu. It's like the first one on there. And it's a way for you to go in and just kind of, anybody who can see review events can look at a list of events that's coming up and go, yep, I've looked at this one. Yep, that one looks good. That one looks good.
Okay.
And it's kind of like your own personal checklist of like events that you've looked at. And Mazévo will record that you've actually looked at those events, and then it will put a little exclamation mark next to them the next time you look at it if any of those events have changed since you looked at it last. So that's what the tool is, I think she's referring to.
Okay. Yeah, I need to get up on this operation thing.
Yeah.
Kathy, actually, you might be able to answer this other question related to that. In addition to having it easier for our production team to be able to see what they should be doing for events in the future, I'm also looking for another tool that might be helpful for once we've had an event and we need to invoice for it. Sometimes the production team is very, very busy and they don't get a chance to look back and make sure that our billing amounts are correct. And I know, Kathy, you do a lot of invoicing and billing. It's not about accountability. I know those people are really super busy, but I'm just trying to find an efficient way for them to be able to know what items should be invoiced. Because if I send them a report, I can't seem to dial down deep enough for them to only look at the things that I'm going to invoice for. What do you do?
Well, we have one person that invoices. It's not me, fortunately, but and so they actually follow up personally to make sure that everything, the hours and times are correct. But our operation isn't as large as some of y'all's, so it can easily be done with one person. So we don't rely on them to tell us what they've done. We just go out there and get the information from them directly. But we only have one production person as well. So I'm not sure that the way we do it is most efficient for a large operation, but it works on a smaller scale.
Okay. Anyone else have anything to add there?
I guess we do a production meeting once a week to make sure we've got enough labor and everything assigned before the events even happen. So we just bill the next day. We don't wait to talk to somebody. There's a lot of preemptive strikes before, like, how many hours are you really going to sign? And if they have to add hours the next day, hopefully when it gets to billing, if someone makes a change, it doesn't balance in the balance sheet because our event planner added another hour here or there. And that's when the accounting person reaches out to us and says, hey, did you add an hour? I need to rerun the report. So it's usually, hopefully we catch it all before the event even happens, get the client to agree, and then it's finalized the next day, the very next day.
Gotcha. Okay. Thanks, Amanda. All right. Deb also has another question here about sending confirmations to customers. It sounds like from your question here, Deb, that when you all are sending confirmations out, you run into some issues with people being able to receive them. They just don't get the confirmation, and email doesn't make it to them for some reason. Please feel free to elaborate if there's any more to that. But has anybody else run into that issue? We've heard of that happening. It's been very intermittent that we've ever heard of that happening. So from our side, it feels like the emails typically go through. But if somebody has a different point of view and they're like, no, we run into that now and then, we'd love to hear that. Anybody have anything to contribute there?
And this is Kathy. Dean helped me with this just last week, I think, or the week before. We realized our operations people were not getting the copies of the confirmation form that I thought they should be getting. And it was because I was putting a string of emails in the to email box. When I was adding a person on to that list, I was just doing like you do in Outlook, where you can just enter a whole string of emails. Well, you can't. It has to just be one email and then hit enter and empty the box, one email address at a time. So that could be some of it.
Kathy, that's been fixed, and it'll be fixed on Tuesday mornings.
Good.
It'll stop you from putting 2 in there with a comma. It doesn't allow you to do that, and it's still something we'll put on the list. So we'll stop the damage right now because it doesn't go to them. So, but it could be in general if it should be going out, right? We've got this emailing service. And we've gone, jumped through all the hoops to make sure that we're not considered spam and all of that. So I guess the question is, if you've got a bad email address in your system, right? If you mistyped it and you hit send, you're going to think it's going to go there, but it may just get, bounced off of somebody's email server. So Deb, I guess if anybody sees this where it's not being delivered to them, we need to know. We have the ability to go look at who's sending and who the emails are. We can't see the body of the email, but we can see the actual message go through our emailing service to the point of like, well, this was supposed to go to Wendy at 9:01 a.m. and it was bounced or it was delivered. That's kind of the extent of what we can see, but we can only see that for 7 days. So I mean, if you've got somebody, Deb, that you could tell us, we can go search for their email address and see what the status of that is. So
thanks, Dean.
One thing I did want to mention was one thing I did come across sending confirmations, not on my computer at home, but on the computer at work. It must be the way it's configured, because I'm finding it difficult, like the actual emails that I enter pop up behind the send and cancel. And I can't click on, because it actually makes you click on the email that you want to send, the person's email. You have to actually check the box, and the box is behind the send. So I can't get to it. So I have to add a random email so it'll move it up so I can get to the box. So that's a little annoying. Is there,
that's a bug. So it's like, if we knew about it, we can get it fixed. So I'll make note of that, and we'll try to get that fixed. So I think what's happening is the resolution of your screen that you're talking about, right, is so small that it's collapsed and the buttons have moved up on top of the thing. So here's something to try is zoom out on that machine. And the way you do that on a Mac is like Control-, and that would zoom out. And that'll relocate those buttons. This is just a temporary fix, right?
Yeah, thank
but
you.
We'll get it fixed.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. All right. One more question here from Deb. Does anybody have a robust process for handling events that are requested where there will be minors, people less than 18 of age in attendance? So I think some of you deal with that. Does anybody want to talk about your process, if you have a process for handling that?
And we have lots of events with minors being a church, but we have a church-wide process as far as what our policies are for volunteers and staff and background checks and having 2 people a minimum at, in every room with student or kids. So it's not really, we don't have a process through Mazévo. We just have a church-wide process.
Okay. It's just kind of already baked into how you do things there.
Right.
Okay. All right. Here's another one. This is your question here, Kathy. It sounds like you were just recently entering building hours and special dates in, or entering them for next year, I think. And she's just curious if anybody's found any tips or tricks on getting those entered into Mazévo. I'm guessing you didn't find that the easiest process to get those in there. I don't know if you want to elaborate on that, but yeah, so if anybody has anything to contribute there.
This is Deb Martin again, and Kathy, I'm with you. Building hours are not as elegant as they could be. Especially since, I'm sorry, Dean, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm
okay.
sorry, it's not.
I have a box of tissues right here.
It's just not, it's so, well, especially since, if you have multiple buildings and they all have different building hours, and then I can't even label I can't label even the building hour time frame that I've entered, so it's like it just defaults to. So I have this list and I have to try to remember, which building do I even have to go? And then if I have to change one date, it's like I have a range of dates that I enter the building hours, but then I just want to change one date. And then I have to make a whole new building hour just for that one date that overrides the other date. And then I have to remember that I've overridden that other date. I'm sorry.
Okay, let me take you back to EMS real quick here, okay? Just so we know where we've come from. In EMS, you pick the building, and this is 8 years old, so this is gone, right? But as I recall, you picked a building and you got a little calendar and you went click, click, click on the calendar, and then you said 8 to 5, submit.
Yes.
And so each day you had to go set those. Now, the one thing you couldn't do in EMS is have multiple building hours on a given day. So if you were open from 8 to noon and then close from noon to 1 and then open again from 1 to 5, you couldn't do that in EMS.
Correct.
Right. And you can do that here. But again, I think it's our interface. What I'm hearing could be improved. So
yeah. Yes, you're right. Yes. And you said building. And so what's nice is, like, if I have a set of buildings that all have the same start and end time, I can enter those multiple buildings. And I'm doing that now in Mazévo. So I'm selecting multiple buildings that have the same building hours. And I can do it from like September 1st to December 22nd when we're in session. But what I'm saying is then, if I for some reason I have to open on a weekend one of those buildings, then I have to make a separate listed date time for that one building for that one weekend. And that's the piece that's wonky. It was
I agree.
Okay.
The other thing is, Dean, I guess it doesn't have the same functionality that perhaps when you're requesting a space and you actually do have a calendar and you can click the dates, you have to add another date, and it's
that's on special dates. Yes.
Yeah. I just, the whole building hours, and we have a library that their hours are all over the place. And like Deb said, they might be closed on a Saturday, but then they're opening up for some special reason. And I have to go back and you can't just get rid of the one date. It's really frustrating.
Do you think having a label on the building hours would help at all? Like just saying, standard hours or something? You kind of alluded to this, Deb, but I don't know if that would assist any there, just being able to label them somehow.
Go ahead, Amanda.
Oh, thank you. What I've had to do, but I'm still in EMS, everybody, so this may not be cool. I partition buildings because I have 10 rooms in a building that are from 8 to 5, and then I'll have the rest of the rooms at normal business hours, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. every day. And then after that, buff guard access. We literally, because of COVID, have so many rules to building and room hours. I cannot tell you how awful it is, but, and so what I do is I'll make 2 buildings. I'll have the Coble building from 7 to 7, and I'll have the Coble building from 5 to 5. And only rooms from 5 to 5 are in the Coble building. That's 5 to 5, and only rooms that are 7 to 7. That way nobody can mess up my hours, basically. But that was the only way I could resolve it, because we have no room hours, specific room hours. And it is my dream to have room hours. The other thing is in the mobile side of EMS, you can say, apply billing hours just to the mobile side, but not to the client side, because I'm an admin user, and gosh darn it, I need to book whenever I feel like it. And I don't need those stupid building hours getting in my way, versus the website where you want people not to be able to book beyond the normal building hours. So without having to go in and change the hours, that is very tedious when you have 2,500 rooms and 244 facilities to deal with.
Well, the good news is we don't enforce building hours for the administrative side of the house. It's just for requesters. So that part's solved. It's just the experience when you're defining these building hours is not optimal.
Yeah.
So,
but that's good. I mean, this is how we kind of hear, this is the kind of feedback we need. So
yeah,
appreciate
we'll
you
fix
guys
it.
sharing that. So
Yeah.
Can I ask a follow-up question to what the person in front of me just asked? Is there a way to, like, not giving someone global admin, is there a way to create like the service policies? I mean, what are they called? Yeah, the service policies,
security policies,
allow people to book after hours, for example, but like allow others not to?
You can well, are they administrators or are they requesters?
They would be requesters. So for example, say like I had like I'm using this wrong, but I'm gonna use our ops teams within our department aren't our administrators. They're people who use and operate our building, but we separate it out to events team and operations team. So 2 different teams, but that team can have an after-hour meeting. You know, so when they request like a meeting space, it could be after the building's closed.
Yeah.
Versus like our athletics groups, they can only reserve the building when it's open.
Ooh, I like that, because we have researchers who work all hours around the clock, and they would need access like that through the web system or the requester side as it.
yeah. So the quick answer is, in Mazévo, we always enforce building hours for requesters all the time. So if your building hours are, say, it closes at 10, requester cannot request beyond 10. However, on a security policy, you could change it up where you said, our building's open until 1 a.m. or whenever it is. But the security policy then that a particular user has can restrict the hours for them. So if you have people that you're like, yeah, I don't care if you book until midnight, great, give them that security policy. Everybody else gets the security policy that is for when your building is normally closed, which is 10 p.m. say that, and then, you know, it's going to enforce it that way. So just something to keep in mind. But in general, building hours are, all requesters play by those same rules for building hours.
And then Brian, with what you just said with the, like, say no building hours, and then you use the security policies for those fake building hours or
Right.
those building hours, that wouldn't account for any like closure, like say holiday closure. Technically, those people could still book within that time frame, I think.
Well, no, because a building hour is always going to trump the security policy.
Oh,
So
gotcha.
closed your building on a certain day, that security
it's closed.
policy is like, they can never go beyond building hours is kind of
Gotcha.
the thing to keep in mind there. So,
I get it now. Sweet, thanks.
yep. All right.
Can
know
I bring
we're-
it back to special dates real quick?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
so I think somebody touched on this already, but if you're trying to add multiple days to a special date, like for our, we just enacted blackout dates on our campus. And so we have all of these special dates listed on our calendar so that we know we're not booking any events on this day. And it's there to tell the requesters that we're not booking any events on it. But unless we go in to the building hours and completely shut down everything on that day, it still allows people to request events on those days. So 2 parts. A, for events, for special dates that are like winter break, that are 2 weeks long, can we do a date span instead of having to add each individual date to it? And B, can we, is there like an option to add to those special dates that say close all buildings on this date?
Yeah.
Well, I think if we're going to clean up building hours and make it easier to add those and adjust them, we could do the same on special dates. The piece that we wouldn't do is special dates are just information only. Okay. So they don't do anything. It's just, hey, there's something going on. It's spring break, it's Christmas break, it's whatever it is. They're just information only, and we drive everything by the building hours.
Okay.
So, and it would be easy to go in the building hours. Yes, you can do that date range right now and say, from December 15th to the 31st, we're closed, or limited hours, or something like that. So, I think the problem with special dates is if you wanted to do spring break just as an information only, yes, you have to do add new date, add new date, add new date. And I think there's a better way to do that and just say it's either a single date or it's a range of dates or something, or click on a calendar. There's a better way to do that. So,
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. We're getting close to our time here. So I got through as many questions as I had. I don't know if anybody, I know there's a couple that I didn't get to, but I don't know if there's some in the chat that we need to.
Yeah, well, there's several here. Let me go through. Amanda, you asked about, are there security groups that we can allocate? Now, you're coming off of EMS, so, and you haven't really seen the way we handle security policies and stuff. But yes, there's, in EMS, you had web process templates, and in Mazévo, we have this security policy that's kind of a combination of multiple templates. So as we talk to you further, we can show you more about that. And Michelle was stunned, and I hopefully happy that we can do drag and drop on the book. I don't know that she knew that. Then Trish, my team would love to see it if our events, when you first log into Mazévo. So let me show you something here. I'll just quickly share my screen here. So when you're saying when they log in, you want them to go somewhere else. Well, what you can do is up here, every user can do this profile and preferences. You can put a default start page here, and you can pretty much pick any page. The one you might want to use is the day at a glance. So you can pick that as your start page. And when you log in, that will automatically take you to that page. Okay. Without that there, it's going to take you to the main menu. So hopefully that explains that. Chime in if that's not what you were asking. So Trish, let's see here. Susan asked a question about drag and drop on classes. Not really. It's not going to work on classes. Classes are a different beast, and we could probably get back to you and kind of talk about that stuff. Sending confirmations. Let's see. Somebody wanted the cheat sheet. So in the chat, I put a couple KB articles to security. So if you look down there, what the security stuff is. And there's a couple other things in the KB about security. So feel free to log in there and just and look at that. Michelle asked a question here. She has a global admin that can't see the option to do that log report that we were talking to Fred about. So the way the filing of a log report, so we showed you how to define them, but when you go to fill one out, the option to even fill them out is predicated on, have you been assigned any to fill out? So the way you would need to do that is you'd have to create a log report. Here, let me share again here. So, and again, you do that over here in settings. So you go to the daily log report. So we've got two here. So if I go to, I've created two different logs. And if I go to manage daily log, so this is where I assign a particular log. So this facility manager shift report, I'm looking at that and who can fill that out. So the only people that are going to get the option to do that are the ones with yes. Okay. So if I want this demo account, I can assign that to them. And now when BP demo 1 logs in, they'll be able to see the log report option on their menu. Okay. So, and you can see right here, it doesn't look like I have it in this demo environment because I don't have any logs assigned to myself. So yeah, it's smart enough to know not to show you the option if nobody's given you the permission and told you which one to fill out. So let's see. I think daily logs, building hours. We're going to work on building hours and special dates. We'll get that cleaned up.
And Kathy, I was showing the daily log earlier. I don't remember if you saw it when I had all those questions up there. That's what it is. It's just a form with questions that you've written on there that they have to fill in. So I had it up there a little earlier.
Perfect.
But well, we're about at our hour here, and I know some of you have to run. So we really appreciate the feedback today. I think this went really well. I was hoping for the type of interaction that you all provided here. It was great to hear from you, and you know, we learn things on these calls as well. So it's just wonderful to hear everybody and get your feedback this way. Stay tuned for our next Mazévo Connect. I'm going to have information up on it soon. We're doing some really cool stuff with Mazévo that you're going to be able to do on your phone now. And we're super excited to show that all to you next month. So stay tuned for that. And yeah, so again, thank you everybody for joining us today, and look forward to seeing you again next time.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
All right.